Hi everyone, Sid here back in the bathroom. I'm sorry it's been a couple weeks. I am still trying to figure out how to draw value out of what happened. I'm fine, by the way, you don't need to worry about me. But something definitely happened and I'm not sure if I'll be able to talk about it, so it'll be a mystery. And thinking about how to get back into this, I was kind of grasping at straws for topics. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to talk about. Then I realized a couple days ago, I owe you guys a story. So today I would like to finish my series on non-voting with the story of the last time I went to vote, which was in the Quebec provincial election of 2012. So I'm going to put a bit of context basically there. I won't be able to go into as much detail as I would have wanted because I don't really feel like doing 2 videos about this. But I was so excited by the fact that I might actually vote because I stand by my description of being a proud non-voter. But the situation and circumstances that were taking place in Quebec in 2012 were unique enough, and through a combination of circumstances, which I'll get into shortly, motivated me to actually get up off my ass and, you know, check a box next to some person's name. So, Quebec in 2012, there was a bunch of things going on, mainly revolving student protests that were taking place. It's a nickname for it here anyway was the Maple Spring. I'm not really gonna go into what I think of that nickname, but the bottom line is there were a lot of protests going on and outrage. Those of you who've heard of Officer 728, that chick got famous during that incident. And there was a summit. I just want to say, the premier at the time, Jean Charest, he'd been in power for about 9 years, both as a majority and a minority leader. And there was a summit that was taking place over a very controversial economic plan. And since there were a bunch of student protests taking place anyway, some people, well, a bunch. I'll leave a video or 2 below. Actually, you know what? All relevant links will be below, or most of them anyway. I don't want to say this every time, but a bunch of people decided to bum rush the place, the Palais des Congrès, where that summit was taking place, and there was footage that was published that day of Jean Charest giving, I don't know what speech, presumably the opening speech of the summit, and he was making jokes of about the student protesters that had been there. And if you don't understand French, I'll just give you the summary of the joke that he was making. Basically, he was making jokes about, the summit was about an economic plan involving the northern parts of Quebec, so he was making jokes about sending these protesters off to work in the most northern parts of Quebec. I'll be right back. So yeah, me personally, I'm probably one of the people who has the lowest expectations of politicians and their behavior in general. I mean, relying on coercion for your income is an insta-fail in my book, and in anyone decent's book, personally. And I was shocked when I saw that video, and there were 2 things that happened. I knew that Charest was done. I knew that with everything that was taking place here, that there's no way that he would even manage to secure a minority government. And I also knew, watching him joke around with his fat cat corporate friends, that I wanted to take place in the collective fuck you that was going to take place on election day. So, naturally, I figured if I'm gonna vote, I'm probably gonna vote for the newest party. It's the least corrupt, on average anyway, and they have the highest incentive to innovate, right? So the newest party at the time was a party called Aussant Nationale, which was founded by a really likable politician. And knowing that I was probably going to vote for them, I started by reading their program. If I play to win, or at least I like to think that. So I knew that if I was going to vote, I'm going to read all the programs. The only two programs that I didn't read was Parti Québécois and Parti Libéral. Because in Quebec and in Canada, actually, we have a de facto two-party system. So even though we have, I think 5 or 6 parties that have a shot at winning a seat or whatever, we probably have more. The Liberals and the PQ have been passing each other power back and forth for as long as anyone can remember, probably forever. And where was I going with this? Yes, so I knew that I was going to read all the programs except for the PQ and the Parti Libéral. And I remember the sinking feeling when I read Option Nationale's program. I was like, holy shit, is this really the best option? Because there was some things in there that really turned my stomach. It wasn't so much the sovereignist thing or the language law thing, because I kind of expected that. Just to give you a bit of context, the founder of Option Nationale, Jean-Martin Aussant, he basically broke off from the PQ to found his own party because they weren't gung-ho enough on the Quebec sovereignty issue and the Bill 101 issue, let's call it that. So I kind of knew what I was kind of expecting those things, although it was really annoying for me to read them in their program. But the thing that really made my stomach sink was their proposition to raise the age of mandatory schooling from 16 to 18 if you haven't graduated yet. So to make that clear, if under their program, if you're 16 and you haven't graduated high school yet, you have to stay there until 18 or until you graduate, whichever comes first. And basically, when first of all, they weren't the only party to propose this. But after reading the other parties' programs, I found that they were either significantly worse or marginally comparable, either a little better or a little worse. The two parties that I ended up hesitating between were Option Nationale and the Green Party, which were also proposing the 16 to 18-year-old thing, by the way. So then I figured, you know what, I'm going to give it to the newer party. I'm kind of hesitating between these two options, so I'll pick the newest one. And even then, because I was so discouraged from reading these programs by the shitty-ass choices that I had, that by the time I called into Free Talk Live, I had decided, but I was kind of no longer sure that I was going to show up. So my typical response when people ask me during an election cycle, hey, so you're going to vote? Who are you going to vote for? Whatever. Usually I say, I'd rather be a productive member of society. But that it nudged a little slightly, and I said, well, if I show up, I'm probably going to vote for Option Nationale. And the thing is, since I knew who I was going to vote for if I showed up, and my whole spiel about voting is I don't want to miss work to wait in line to check a box next to some sociopath's name. I figured I might as well do advance voting. You know, I know who I'm gonna vote for, and I don't want to wait in line, and I wanna participate in the collective boot in the ass of Jean Charest that everyone knew was gonna take place, except for the most diehard liberals, and even then I'm pretty sure they kind of suspected that they were lying to themselves. So I show up from the advanced voting day in my area, which was a Sunday. And boy, did I get screwed. Basically, as soon as I showed up there, I knew I was done and I'd been had. Because I show up there and it's basically full of old people. And I'm like, holy shit. Because right now I have a choice. I can either wait in line and vote or I can go home. And first of all, I was there. And second of all, this was a Sunday, so this wasn't cutting into work. This was cutting into Xbox time or chilling with friends or whatever. I wasn't missing work for this. So I figured, you know what, I'm gonna do it. So I waited there for 45 goddamn minutes. And I wasn't, you know, the whole point in principle of advanced voting is to avoid big lineups. And I spent 45 minutes in this ocean of gray hair at shoulder height. And after I waited there, I checked the box and I went home, knowing full well that my vote wasn't going to change anything. And it didn't, by the way. Aussant Nationale didn't get a single seat. Jean-Martin Aussant didn't win in his home county and ended up going back to the private sector shortly after. But he's in finance, so it might as well be public, let's face it. But the bottom line is my anticipation to save time ended up costing me time of time that wouldn't have been productive anyway. And the fascinating thing to me was when I got home and posted on Facebook that I had voted, the fascinating thing to me was reactions from my libertarian and anarchist friends. I was really surprised at how instead of being curious, a lot of them went to... They were acting as if I had kicked in their door to steal money from their wallets. And the funny thing is, I can appreciate the sentiment. I've made the case in parts 1 and 2, and I've had conversations with these people. That was the most mind-blowing part to me. So to see these reactions, I was like, really? I didn't take it personally, obviously, but it was really shocking. For a lot of these people, it was an opportunity for curiosity that was kind of missed. But it was really fascinating to me. But there's one thing that I want to mention before I let you go, is that one of the arguments that I presented in part 2 was my reaction to the famous phrase, "If you don't vote, you can't complain." When in fact it's the opposite. It's when you vote, you're basically accepting. You're saying, okay, I consent to this game. I accept the result of whatever happens. So the funny thing also for me, not only was the reactions of the people when my libertarian and anarchist friends, when I said that I voted, but for the following 2 years during Pauline Marois' reign, surprise, surprise, Parti Québécois got in. But for the 2 years that Pauline Marois was Premier of Quebec, I bent over backwards to avoid complaining about politics, at least at the local level, because I voted. So once I checked that box, I was saying, I accept what happens. And I was aware of that. So I was kind of eagerly waiting for the next election to happen so that I can start complaining about Quebec politics again. So that's my story. Thank you very much for watching. You can please like and share, leave comments below. I'm really curious to see your thoughts, and you'll find links to my Twitter and Tumblr below. Please subscribe to me on YouTube. That would be awesome. And that's it. Thank you very much. I will see you soon. You take care.